What's up, everybody? We are pretty much winding our way through the peak of the growing season at this point. And this is the fourth year since I've had the garden. For those of you who are maybe a little bit more recent followers of my activity here, it originally just started with the west raised bed and the east raised bed. In the following season, after experiencing such great success, I decided to expand the area. The overall fenced garden area is about 18 by 18 feet, including the hop bed, which is a 2 by 10. And then just behind the camera, it was pretty much all pots before, but now I think I'm going to start doing some mounded rows where the pots had encouraged a lot of worms to come up and essentially aerate and condition this horrible soil. The native soil here is just essentially rock and clay. So over time, the worms have helped, again, aerate, clean that up a little bit, condition it, and allow me to just perform the simple task of mounding soil. And the first 2 seasons, I employed a very strict feed and water schedule for the no-till growing method. I was doing things like using tap water or water from my hoses, but I would never directly water the gardens. I would always fill like a 30 or 40 gallon tub and let that sit for 24 to 48 hours to help clean out the chlorine and stuff like that. I have not done that for at least 2 seasons now, and I feel like it has definitely had an impact on the overall quality of plants themselves. In addition to that, I kind of stopped doing the coconut water and aloe vera gel feeds. If you're unfamiliar with that, there's a company that would produce freeze-dried, powderized coconut water. It comes from young coconuts, and they would also do the same thing with aloe vera gel. So they would take aloe vera gel, powderize it, and then you reconstitute that in water. I was a little skeptical as to whether or not those were doing a whole lot by way of introducing nutrients and minerals into the soil itself. And having skipped that process for a couple seasons now, I'm pretty much a firm believer that those had a major impact on the overall growth of the plants and their resistance to disease and things like that. So it's kind of funny. I think it was about 4 years ago, like right as I was in the middle of my first season, I was chatting with a colleague about maybe doing a little bit of an experimentation where I would have one pot that was getting my very strict, vigorous feed and water schedule, and then another one that I just kind of let go, more of a natural route. I didn't do that. I just basically backslid from the overall schedule itself, and it just seems like the garden suffers as a result. I do still use the worm castings, specifically from Sprout Faster, crustacean meal from Neptune's Harvest, kelp meal from Maxi Crop, and Mycos from Extreme Gardening, none of whom support me in any way or anything like that. You find a product that you like, and people ask me how my plants do so well, and I tell them exactly what I do. So regardless of having stopped the coconut water and aloe feeding, the plants still look basically better than any ones that I've seen in this area, with the exception of maybe a few people. You're right there, Miss Canna. So feeding is obviously extremely crucial, and maintaining that on a consistent schedule is also going to help bolster your plants. But it really is kind of an affirmation that going that extra mile, investing a little bit more time and effort and money, because the coconut water and aloe vera gel is not cheap. It, in my opinion, based upon what I've seen, it has made a huge difference. You know, I never had any issues with blight or disease in the first 2 seasons, aside from maybe a little bit. And the reason I'm kind of talking about this is because I was reflecting over my Instagram feed recently, just looking back all the way to the beginning, and it's like night and day, the difference between the overall vigor and productivity of the vines themselves. So, take that for what it is. I like to share my experience because I have learned an incredible amount from people on mainly Instagram. I did learn the feed schedule from a guy named Paul Rosas. He also goes by the name Brown Guy 420. You can find him on YouTube. He just recently posted his entire series of what's called the Daily Grind, where he pretty much would record his daily operations on various medicinal cannabis farms up in Oregon. And I saw how well it worked for him and figured, why would it not work for tomatoes and peppers and hops, just various crops, since it all focuses on maintaining a healthy soil food web. And the more research I did with regard to soil itself, it just led me to believe you need to feed the soil and not the plants. And that was the biggest mistake, or perhaps misconception, I saw a lot of people making when it comes to gardens. And I would be asked, it was like the very first thing people would ask me when they see my garden is, oh, what do you feed your plants? Well, I don't. I feed the soil. And the plants have this amazing ability to essentially dictate to the soil and the microbes, the whole microbiology that lives within the soil, what they need. It's amazing if you just do some really basic research about soil science and roots and plants and how they work. They're a lot smarter than we give them credit for, that's for sure. We're just here to help facilitate their process of growth. And the other thing I'll note here is I have a lot of vines that are dying back. I say it's basically for no reason, but the more I think about it, I'm fairly certain it's attributed to the fact that 95% of what I'm growing this year is volunteers, and those roots were incredibly shallow. Typically I start my crops in late January or February to get a nice head start, make sure that their roots are really well established, and then plant them very deep into the beds. But a lot of the volunteers that I grew this season did not have deep roots, and I can't help but think that that's had a negative impact. So it is what it is. You live and learn. Hopefully this isn't the last growing season for any of you out there. If you're feeling dismayed or discouraged by the productivity of your garden, there's always the next season. Whether or not it's a summer or winter season, you can always try to grow something. And I would highly encourage that. watching the daily growth of plants and seeing their evolution and success or failure is ultimately a very good way to have a nice baseline of hope that life does carry on regardless of the situation you're in. I hope you all are doing well, staying healthy, taking care of yourselves, and have a great day. Peace.